truth that WWE can't escape, no matter how many part-time megastars it throws into the mix, no matter how many legends they resurrect for pops that last seconds, is that the modern product only has one true pillar capable of holding everything together, and that man is Roman Reigns. He wasn't just a champion, he was a walking narrative, a magnet for mainstream attention, and the embodiment of WWE's evolution from the remnants of the PG era into the sprawling, unpredictable landscape of TKO's corporate experiment. While others have come and gone, been pushed and cooled, Roman Reigns sustained a dynasty that gave the company structure. Without him, WWE has spiraled into a confusing mess of tone shifts, failed pivots, and short-sighted storytelling. No better example than John Cena's failed heel turn and the botched Cody Rhodes conclusion. The only fix now is Roman Reigns returning to reassert order before the foundation collapses entirely. WWE had the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to flip John Cena's character into something fresh, something dangerous, something evolutionary, and they blew it in a matter of weeks. For 2 decades, fans begged for a heel turn that never came. Cena remained the White Knight, the face of hustle, loyalty, and respect, always playing by the rules even when the world around him changed. Then, out of nowhere, post-Elimination Chamber 2025, they finally pulled the trigger. Cena's assault on Cody Rhodes was vicious, personal, and symbolically perfect. He turned on the company's new golden boy in the most public and theatrical fashion possible. In that moment, WWE had lightning in a bottle. But instead of riding that current, instead of anchoring it to a long-term character renaissance, they fumbled the execution with weak motivations, shallow promo logic, and inconsistent weekly booking. Heel Cena should have been the final boss, vindictive, calculating, driven by a deep resentment of being forgotten by the same fans who once jeered him. Instead, they gave him a few cheap heat segments, a poorly lit backstage promo dripping with forced bitterness, and they awkwardly tried to blend his merch machine persona with darker actions, creating a tonal contradiction that left fans confused instead of intrigued. Cena wasn't reborn. He was just angrier and randomly cruel. There was no depth, no introspection, no chilling new cadence in his speech or psychology. Rather than drawing from his real-life frustration over Hollywood backlash, his legacy debates, or how Cody had replaced him as WWE's storytelling avatar, the creative team had him spewing cliches that felt like discarded Attitude Era scraps. The character could have thrived if they had leaned into realism. Let Cena admit he resented being replaced, that the fans never truly loved him, that he returned not to help but to hurt. Instead, he became a villain with no cause, sabotaging what should have been WWE's Joker moment. The consequences of this creative failure were instantly felt in the Rhodes storyline. But inserting heel Cena into the mix derailed everything. The focus shifted from Cody's mission to Cena's ego, and then neither arc got the development they deserved. Cena distracted from the Rhodes Reigns climax, and when Roman was removed from the spotlight due to injury and storyline hiatus, it created a vacuum no one else was equipped to fill. WWE made Cody the champion, yes, but they failed to make him the guy. That distinction matters. What followed was weeks of muddled booking where Cody was forced to feud with a miscast Seth Rollins, do damage control over a heel John Cena, who fans still wanted to cheer for, and carry the responsibility of being the face of a brand that no longer had its tribal chief. Instead of a coronation, Cody's reign began with uncertainty. No bloodline to conquer, no real antagonist to challenge his identity, and no consistent thread connecting the audience's emotional investment. WWE didn't just fumble Cena's turn, they short-circuited Cody's payoff, and with Roman gone, there was no mythology left to tie it all together. Roman Reigns didn't just command segments, he defined them. Every episode of SmackDown with Roman at the helm had direction. Whether he was confronting challengers, navigating family tension with the Usos, or delivering soliloquies that blurred kayfabe and reality, Roman brought dramatic weight to a product that often skims the surface. His absence has been glaring, not just in storyline terms, but in fan engagement. Merchandise sales have dipped, crowd reactions have grown unpredictable, and the show's pacing feels lost without his presence as the centerpiece. It's become painfully clear that the Bloodline saga wasn't just a great angle, it was the only one holding the company together. What makes Roman so necessary isn't just his ability to cut a promo or work a main event, it's his gravitational pull. When Roman is around, everyone else has a role to play. Whether you're a rising star like Solo Sikoa trying to break away, a returning legend trying to stay relevant, or an underdog like Sami Zayn trying to earn respect, your proximity to Roman defines your position in WWE's narrative ecosystem. Without him, there's no orbit. Everything floats aimlessly. Stories start and stop. Characters flip alignments with no reason. Rivalries feel hollow. In his absence, WWE has become a disconnected collection of matches, masquerading as a show. Roman's return wouldn't just reinvigorate SmackDown, it would resuscitate WWE's identity. With TKO pushing for global expansion, mega events in foreign stadiums, and premium live events stacked back to back, WWE needs a consistent narrative anchor more than ever. Not a novelty act, not a part-time icon, but a believable present force that can carry storylines over the long term. Roman Reigns proved, across 3 years of dominant storytelling, that he can elevate titles, elevate talent, and elevate the company's brand positioning all at once. Who else can realistically do that? Not Cena, who's now damaged goods from a rushed turn. Not Cody, who struggles to lead without a foil. Not Rollins, whose character oscillates between comedy and chaos. Not CM Punk, whose injuries and backstage politics make him unreliable. And certainly not Logan Paul, who, despite all the hype, still wrestles like a guest, not a cornerstone. Even Roman's mere return tease would shift the landscape. Imagine the sound of that music hitting just as Cody tries to give a heartfelt promo about legacy. Picture the visual of Roman standing opposite heel Cena, reclaiming his place not as a babyface, but as a conquering anti-hero. Visualize the dramatic possibilities of a fractured bloodline uniting under desperate circumstances to restore their status. No other wrestler brings this type of narrative potential. Roman doesn't just return, he redirects the entire company. He demands commitment from writers, forces urgency from his peers, and reminds the audience what true stakes feel like. And that's exactly what's been missing. Stakes. Since Roman left, nothing has mattered. Titles change hands, but don't feel important. Grudges erupt, but fade within weeks. Even WrestleMania 41, though spectacular in scale, lacked cohesion. Cena versus Cody versus the ghost of Roman should have been the most compelling triangle in wrestling. Instead, it became a rushed spectacle with no emotional center, because the one person who always brought clarity, who always made feuds feel generational, who always delivered at the apex of the story arc, was absent. Without Roman, WWE's creative compass spun out of control. It wasn't just a lack of his matches, it was a lack of purpose. That's why the calls for his return have grown louder. Not just from fans, but from within the locker room. Superstars know they're better in his orbit. Roman's presence challenges performers to rise, creates heat that transfers, and solidifies feuds with just a glance. Everyone from LA Knight to Braun Breaker would be made stronger just by standing next to him. Even Cody's story, currently drifting with vague patriotism and repeated promos about Dusty, would find sharper focus the moment Roman steps back in to remind him that finishing the story was always his line, his burden, and his legacy to protect. And if WWE truly wants to build towards something meaningful, something that draws real emotion, real investment, and real global headlines, they need Roman Reigns as the centerpiece once again, not as a transitional act, not as a nostalgia pop, but as the tribal chief reclaiming his throne in a kingdom that's lost all structure. Roman's return doesn't just fix what's broken, it reestablishes what WWE is supposed to be. And until that moment happens, everything else will feel like a placeholder. Roman Reigns returning to WWE is not just about plugging a gap in star power, it's about salvaging the structural integrity of the entire product. Since he left, there's been an eerie sense of hollowness to the programming. Even when shows are packed with matches, returns, and surprise segments, there's a distinct lack of cohesion. Roman gave WWE a spine. He was the reason every episode of SmackDown felt like it had stakes, not just for titles, but for respect, family, legacy. His presence turned wrestling into storytelling. His absence has turned it into spectacle without soul. You can see it most in how WWE struggles to maintain consistency now. Every feud feels like it's manufactured week to week, instead of organically evolving. Without Roman dictating the flow of the show, the bloodline hierarchy dissolved into confusion. Solo Sikoa was hinted to be the new head of the table, but his direction has lacked credibility. He wasn't built up beforehand. He didn't seize power on screen with conviction. Instead, his ascension was implied through commentary and backstage segments, not earned through dominant wins or compelling promos. That's not how the bloodline should move. Roman would never allow that kind of storytelling weakness. Every one of his feuds, from Jey Uso to Edge to Sami Zayn, was methodically built over months. Every chapter had purpose. Now, we get cheap cliffhangers and rushed betrayals with no foundation. The difference is night and day. And it's not just the bloodline that suffered. It's the broader WWE universe. Roman Reigns as champion made everyone else define themselves in relation to him. Even those who weren't in his direct orbit still benefited from his gravitational presence. Drew McIntyre became more focused when chasing Roman. Kevin Owens delivered some of his best mic work when he had to go toe-to-toe with Reigns. Sami Zayn's transformation from comedy act to main event sympathy magnet doesn't happen without Roman as the antagonist. Roman forced characters to evolve. He made careers, he elevated segments just by reacting. And now that he's gone, WWE feels like a stage with no lead actor. The players are out there, but there's no script worth following. That was evident in the aftermath of WrestleMania 41. Even though Cody Rhodes walked out of Philadelphia with the championship, there was a strange lack of finality. The story didn't feel finished because the antagonist wasn't there. You can't slay the dragon if the dragon isn't breathing fire in the first place. Roman wasn't pinned. He wasn't broken. He was just gone. And instead of using his absence to build anticipation for a vengeful return, WWE pivoted to aimless challenges and rushed tag matches. Cody became a placeholder rather than a successor. His title run feels less like a new era and more like a holding pattern until the real conflict resumes. And the fans feel it. They're still chanting Roman's name, not to disrespect Cody, but because they know the real story remains unfinished.